Travails of a Jetty Black Oystercatcher chick in two YouTube videos. This is video 1. I am Joel Weintraub. This endeavor is with the help of Dawn Garcia. So here's what video 1 will cover. Oystercatcher status and distribution. Some Bloy is the abbreviation we'll use for Black Oystercatcher, biology, stress and mortality factors, Dana Point, abbreviation DP, Breakwater history, Bloy history in Dana Point, and then summer 2024 photos. Video 2. It's going to look at the Dana Point Breakwater and the camera locations, the summer 2024 Bloy developmental videos, it's mainly videos in part 2, and a few photos, observer notes, and fledgling Jetty home range. Each part stands alone, the video 1 and video 2, but I hope you view these in order, video 1 and then video 2. So abbreviations we'll be using: Bloy, Black Oystercatcher, DG is Dawn, DP is Dana Point, California, and I am JW. Some definitions. A jetty, and the oystercatchers were nesting on a jetty in Dana Point. A jetty is a structure that projects from land out into water. And a breakwater is a jetty that protects a coast or a harbor from the force of waves. And in Dana Point, we can use those interchangeably, because the jetty is a breakwater. Some definitions for young birds. A chick, maybe that comes from chicken, right? A young bird, especially newly hatched. Well, it's a general term used for young birds, a chick. A fledgling is a young bird that has grown feathers, probably down feathers initially, and is learning to fly. And black oystercatchers leave their nest, so we can't say they're nestlings. They're not learning to fly until a number of weeks later. They will have feathers, but we will use chick and fledgling as terms to describe the bird before they fly, because black oystercatchers are precocial. They are capable of moving around on their own soon after hatching, and that's 1 to maybe 3 days, and then they leave where that nest was, where the eggs were. First, where is Dana Point, Orange County, California? Well, here's a map showing you that the star is where Dana Point is. It's between Long Beach, Los Angeles, and way down and San Diego. That's where it is. And between Dana Point and San Diego, most of the beaches are sandy. They're not good black oystercatcher habitat. I took this photograph of an adult female black oystercatcher in 2019. It's a striking bird. But you ask, how do I know it's an adult and a female? Black oystercatcher, and there's its scientific name. So let's look more closely at this bird, at its head. And there are 2 features. The iris of her eye has flecks, that's what it's called, flecks, that make its pupil look more keyhole-shaped, as you can see. One paper reported, and I will put this in the show notes, that reference, reported a 94% success rate for sex identification using this characteristic. I'll put that reference in the show notes, as I told you, and all the references through this video. The adult has an orbital ring around the eye, which is reddish. So let's find an adult male to compare it. I found a pair of oystercatchers, not the family we were following, on the rocks at the start of the Dana Point Jetty on September 29th, and took this picture you're looking at a day later on September 30th. They weren't there. On September 27th, Dawn had 3 oystercatchers here, including a juvenile. That was a real surprise, and you'll find out why. I'll discuss our findings later with a September 27th photo. I had 2 adults here, adult oystercatchers, on October 4th here as well, but the juvenile was not accompanying them. An adult male photographed on a cloudy, foggy morning. Most of the mornings around here have been foggy. Notice the round pupil of its eye. This is a front view of the adult female of the pair, showing how thin the tip of the bill is, useful to chisel limpets off rocks. And that's one of the things they were feeding their chick, were limpets. Getting down to work, right there, and trying to pry off a limpet. They also feed on mussels. They generally don't feed on oysters, by the way. This is our Jetty fledgling on September 30th, 2024, showing its bicolored bill and the lack of the red orbital ring. This is courtesy of Christopher Garcia. Thank him for this picture. So let's look at the status and distribution. The species is found on the west coast of North America, mainly in the rocky intertidal area. You can see that in Southern California, it's not very purple, the distribution there, for reasons I just gave. And I'm going to do some quotes from various online websites. I will show these in the show notes. So the Black Oystercatcher is the charismatic signature bird of the rocky intertidal. There are thought to be no more than 12 to 18,000 of these birds ranging from the Aleutian Islands through Baja California. The Black Oystercatcher is believed to be a particularly sensitive indicator of the overall health of the rocky intertidal community. The Black Oystercatcher is a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service species of concern because of its small population size, restricted range, and threats to habitat from human and natural factors that may potentially limit its long-term viability. Some species facts about oystercatchers, black oystercatchers. Adult black oystercatchers don't generally start breeding until they are about 5 years old. Eggs incubated for 24 to 29 days. The nest is a hollow of bare rock, sparsely lined with bits of shell or broken stone. There are other places they could do that as well. 2 to 3 eggs, occasionally 1, typically 5 to 21 feet above mean high tide. Now picture that on a jetty, how high the nest would be. Same nest site may be used in successive years. Single brooded, but lost clutches replaced, as they were this summer. Nestling precocial and downy. Now you know what precocial is. Tended by both adults. Young active, but do not follow adults until 3 to 5 weeks. In fact, it seemed that the adults were always following the young, which was very, very independent. Fly at about 5 weeks. Apparently continue to receive food from parents for a long period of time. But the Golden Gate Bird Alliance stated that black oystercatchers are ready for flight at about 38 to 40 days, and our fledgling probably flew even later than that. A 2014 paper on assessing bloy populations in California found that the vast majority of nests were observed on tidally separated offshore rocks greater than 10 meters high. So I have a whole section here, including videos, on stress and mortality factors. In fact, what you're looking at is a great blue heron hunting at the base of the jetty. This was taken in September 18th of 2024. These are top predators of the area. They nest on Harbor Island and Dana Point in trees there, and they are year-long residents of the area. They could easily eat and capture a chick. These oystercatchers are highly vulnerable to natural and human disturbances. Major threats include predation of eggs and young by native and non-native predators, maybe one of the reasons why they prefer offshore islands, small islands maybe, coastal development, human disturbance, vessel wakes, especially when they coincide with high tides, shoreline contamination such as oil spills. Another threat that impacts black oystercatchers, mentioned in a Mendocino Voice news article from July 21, 2020, is flying drones above nesting birds, which the oystercatchers perceive to be predators. They might abandon the nest. It would be open to predators, etc. Trash, especially plastic, may also, if ingested, be harmful to the birds and to the ecosystem as a whole. And climate change, leading to sea level rising, may further impact the rocky intertidal zone and the black oystercatcher population. Specific threats to bloy breeding on the Dana Point breakwaters include predators such as western gulls and egrets and herons such as great blue herons, human disturbances including water activities, hikers on the breakwater and fishermen, wakes and noise by large fishing, passenger, educational, and whale watching ships. So let's take a look at that. But first, an additional stress that the Dana Point breakwater presents to the bloy is a very narrow intertidal habitat composed of large rocks with many steep vertical surfaces, providing a challenge for a small bloy chick to conquer if it moves along the jetty sides or practices flying there. I mean, this looks imposing. The rock at the top, by the way, that pointed rock, I've named Shark Tooth, and is a good reference point towards the end of the outer jetty. This picture was taken as a long-distance photo down the breakwater, and it does look pretty impressive compared to the person paddling. The bloy family that we looked at also had a noisy neighbor at times. Night or day, a foghorn located at the jetty edge, quote, can produce a sound level ranging from 120 decibels to 140 dB. This level of sound is comparable to standing near a thunderclap or a chainsaw in terms of loudness, and that's a 2 to 3 second blast when it's activated every 15 to 30 seconds. And at the end of the outer jetty, there is a tower, and it looks like there is a sound equipment there to generate a foghorn. And consider the stress on Dawn and myself and other observers of the 2024 bloy youngster, watching it navigate an untraditional rocky intertidal habitat filled with cliffs, ship waves and high tide, sheer numbers of nearby humans, ship noise and engine fumes, fishing line and discarded hooks, trash and all sorts of close watercraft. So now I'm going to show you some documentation about that, some possible stress situations using photos and videos. Let's look at the breakwater. So here are two people who are going to be hiking on this almost 1 mile of rock going out into the ocean. I didn't stay around to find out how far they got, but notice they also have a dog, which is unleashed. And there are people who treat this as a challenge and want to go on the breakwater. Obviously, they're going to be going by the oystercatchers, which are nesting on the side of the jetty, the inland side. And there are fishermen that hike all the way out to the end of the jetty, and all throughout the jetty, they may be fishing. California fishing licenses are not required for fishing on the jetty, so on weekends, the jetty is a popular fishing area. And fishing by the jetty by boat is also done. I have a video of this. I'm going to show you a single frame that these fishermen cast bait, which was probably anchovy, right at the base of this jetty. And you'll note that there's a young oyster, our young oystercatcher, that we followed right there. And they were just doing it right there. Water transports. There's a large number of boats at the harbor that are devoted to providing nature experiences to their passengers. Whale watching and ocean fishing trips are a big business there, and a lot of these boats, of course, have wakes. The Catalina Express is a passenger line that goes out to Catalina and uses the Dana Point Harbor for one of their boats. So let's look at some of these. Here, for instance, on a somewhat foggy morning, it seemed that most of the days here have been foggy. I photographed this looking down at the channel from the cliffs, increased the contrast, and here is Captain Dave whale watching boat. It looks filled on this early Saturday morning, and he has, I think, 3 separate ships. So this is a big business, and he's not the only one that has whale tourism going on in Dana Point. The Sea Explorer that I'm going to show you next from the Ocean Institute went out on September 24th, 2024. It's a picture I'm going to show you. With students, they went very slowly and at distance past the Blois, as the naturalist possibly pointed out the Jetty family. And I want you to, on this video, I want you to see that parent 1 is going to fly up to the jetty top on approach of the ship. Perhaps the speedboat you'll see also added to the potential threat to the oystercatchers. During the bird's stay here, both San Bernardino Audubon Society and Pasadena Audubon Society went out of Dana Point for pelagic birding on this ship and were able to see the chicks on the jetty. So let's start this video. See the bird fly up. And we're going to see the rest of the family in a second. Doesn't appear to have too much of a wake. So let me zoom in. And there's the chick and the parent on September 24th. Next, I'll show you an outrigger canoe group. There were dozens of people in it, vigorously paddling by the Black Oystercatchers. The parent birds retreated and appeared agitated. The chick moved further into its rock shelter. Hopefully, you'll be able to hear in the background sound, which I hope is going to be recorded in this video, one parent's alarm calls picked up by the camera's microphone. I'll show you this. This is September 14th. A lot of things happened that I saw on September 14th. And I could see the canoes coming down, vigorously coming down, advancing. I could have zoomed out a little bit to show you even more of this scene. I think that was also a weekend, a Saturday. Use of paddle boards and kayaks and canoes is very popular in the harbor. They could generate a reaction from the oystercatchers, especially if close. Dawn documents one negative interaction in video 2. Here's 2 clips, however. The first didn't seem to generate a reaction from the adult, except shaking its head at the sight. The second, with the paddler noticing the bloy, might have caused a reaction. Let me show you 2 clips. Here's the first one. Now, given I'm shooting, by the way, these videos almost at the same level as my subjects, from 800 to 900 feet away, distance between film subjects and the breakwater is difficult to access. Yep, shakes his head. Well, this one, the parent vocalized, the chick went back. That paddler actually looked over his left shoulder and might have made eye contact. Let's look at the breakwater history of Dana Point, since this is the habitat that they decided they would have their broods on. My family has a large watercolor by William Hamilton's titled Dana Point 1959. And you're actually looking at the famous Killer Dana, a historic and famous surfing area wiped out by the creation of the Dana Point Breakwater and Harbor. You can see all the wave action in that cove. And here, courtesy of historical imagery from Orange County, 1960, you can see that there is no harbor there, and there is Killer Dana. That's a 1960 view before harbor development. And then in the mid-1960s, they built the breakwaters, the outer, and there's another one there. And by 1970, which is what this picture is from, they had put in a lot of the harbor for the ships. So to transform Killer Dana, workers dumped roughly 1 million tons of rock, larger boulders hauled in by truck from a quarry above Vista, smaller rocks transported by barge from Catalina into the water to form the harbor's 2 breakwaters. But I'm not quite sure about that, because there's another version online that the rock type that makes up the breakwaters in the Dana Point Harbor is granite quarried in Vista, California, but they claim that that was used as a foundation and the support and the larger granite came from Catalina Island. I'm not sure that is actually correct. But instead, we're going to use an aerial photo, and I'll use it from Google Maps in 2024. There is projects underway to revitalize the harbor, bring in even more people, including newer boat slips, especially on the upper left you can see there, and a parking structure which is on the upper right. That's certainly going to increase tourists. I have here a view of the outer jetty taken in 2020. I tried to take this picture this time. Every day was foggy. And you can see how long it is all the way out to the tower at the end. As a result of the harbor development, Dana Point is one of the most popular recreational harbors on the West Coast. Attracts visitors from around the world for shopping, restaurants, and a host of marine and land-based activities. So Chamber of Commerce or the marina at Dana Point. And here is a view of the density of boats. There are about 2,500 ship slips leased to the public in the harbor, and it can accommodate more boats. Another foggy picture, and a lot of these will have to go by the jetty to go out into the ocean. Over 2 million visitors come to the harbor annually for shopping, dining, and a variety of recreational activities. So what is the history of the Black Oystercatcher in Dana Point and, in a sense, in Orange County? Well, I happen to have these status and distribution books, one from 1979 by Sexton and Hunt, and one by in 1996 by Hamilton and Willock, and they'll give me a historical look at this species. And these are in your show notes, references to them. So in 1979, the comment was that Black Oystercatchers are a very rare winter visitor, September through March, to rocky shores along the coast. There's only 5 records, one of them from Doheny, which has in low tide something, a rocky sort of intertidal, but then the beach itself is sand. Dana Point 1, Laguna Beach 3. And then in even 1996, oystercatchers were seldom recorded before 1991. This oystercatcher is now nearly regular during fall and winter. No mention of breeding. There is a 1997 Breeding Birds of Orange County Atlas. They made no mention of black oystercatchers breeding in the county. I also looked at messages on the Orange County Birding group, showing you the address there, and we'll put that in the show notes, for breeding information of Dana Point black oystercatchers. This resources will be noted as OC Birding. So I found in July 10th, 2010, in OC Birding, that Brian Daniels said that we, Robert McNabb, Irene Horiuchi, and Jim Pike, Kim Rieger, and I had a rather enjoyable day on the Ocean Institute Sea Explorer Blue Whale Safari trip. Also of interest was a black oystercatcher pair at the end of the breakwater that appeared to have a nest. But I don't think they did any more follow-up, whether they actually had young and whether they, went to become a juvenile even. There was a 2011 study of black oystercatchers in California, and they found that the southernmost nest record in California was at Dana Point in Orange County, also coincident with the southernmost point included in the survey. So Dana Point, at least the nest record, was the most southern in the United States, that's including Baja California, for this species. The previous paper showed the coordinates of the sampled nest, but it plots in 2024 in the water next to the breakwater. The area where the nest probably was, I plotted in the next slide. So it's on the harbor side, and it's pretty far out. South of Dana Point, the coast is mainly sandy beaches, as I've indicated, to the U.S. border. It's not suitable habitat for a rocky intertidal shorebird. But San Diego County had a possible blue nesting event on Zuniga Jetty in 2003 per their bird atlas. But there's no mention of whether they were successful, etc. It's just a suggestion. So the nest in Dana Point is the most southern nest in the United States confirmed of this species. June 2nd, as part of a thread, Tom Benson noted that, quote, last summer on August 11th, 2012, I saw one well-grown chick on the jetty with 2 adults. So here we have a well-grown chick, which I'm going to equate as a juvenile, and this is probably the only one for 2012 until 2024. June 2nd, 2013, Robert McNabb. The black oystercatchers inhabiting Dana Point Harbor have finally had a successful clutch on the outer jetty at Dana Point Harbor. I spotted 2 fledglings on the rocks of the jetty on Saturday, June 1st, 2013, directly across from the first parking lot just south of the intersection of Island Drive and Dana Drive. The parents were aggressively chasing a great blue heron that came too close to the babies. As some may recall, for the past few years, we have noticed an attempted nest near the end of the outer jetty, but I have not seen any successful fledglings. From these previous attempts, I think moving the nest several hundred yards north appeared to be the ticket. But still, those are fledglings. Did they become an adult? There's no indication they did, actually. And for this specific group, this brood, getting ahead of myself, there's a great blue heron that happened to be near me when I was taking pictures from the island of the jetty. There is the location, according to McNabb, of the nest on the jetty. D.D. Gulwitzer photographed the 2 chicks in June of 2013. Good photographer, local photographer, used a 500 millimeter lens with a 2-power extender. Can you see them? You can see the vertical habitat of this Can you pick out both chicks and parents? It's difficult at a distance to pick out the family unless you specifically were looking for them. These chicks did not survive. Because on June 28th, in 2013, Robert said, it appears that the Black Oystercatchers that had a pair of fledglings back on June 1st, 2013 are re-nesting on the outer jetty at Dana Point Harbor. I observed one of the pair on Monday evening near the spot where I saw the fledglings originally, and the bird was still present at the same spot this evening, Friday, June 28th, 2013. The bird appears to be incubating a nest on a large flat jetty boulder on the harbor side about 3/4 of the way up from the water line. Regarding the fledglings, the past ones, who knows what happened, but it appears they did not survive. There was large surf, high tide event a few weeks back that may have killed them. Of course, there are numerous predators near the site as well, including gulls, great blue herons, brown pelicans, mammals such as rats, etc., that may have also had a negative effect. It is a tough life for an oystercatcher in the harbor. I remember an angry ocean with large waves breaking over the end of the outer breakwater and the subsequent disappearance of a blue brood. This may have been that 2013 event. And then Phyllis Anderson in July of the same year indicated that she was out on a boat today in the main channel at Dana Point Harbor and saw the pair of Black Oystercatchers with a young one, on the breakwater where the female had been nesting. The little guy was walking around and the male brought in food for it. Now, if this observation is correct, and the youngster came from the re-nesting pair, that re-nesting pair probably laid eggs well before the June 28th observation, and you notice it was, quote, a little guy, so that's not a juvenile. That's not a bird that has reached an age where it can fly. So it looks like 2012 is the only year. And until July of 2024, there were no more online reports I could find of Black Oystercatcher nests or fledglings or juveniles in Dana Point. So I'm sure you are here to see some photo exhibits about this. Here's an overview of the 2024 Black Oystercatcher Jetty youngster from video frames and photos. We, myself and Dawn, have more video and photos from other field days. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do about 5 seconds of photo, I think. Just remember that part 2 will show many videos to document the development of the chicken and its behaviors, and some of these photos you're seeing are actually frames from the videos you'll eventually see in video 2. So first I want to show you that the nest area in 2024 was even farther out on the jetty. My jetty photos and videos were taken about 800 to 950 feet from the breakwater where the chick developed. My camera was a Nikon P1000 at maximum optical zoom at an equivalent of a 3000 millimeter lens. And here I am set up. There's the jetty. That's the area that the fledgling was found on. I kept plotting where it was as we went through its stay here. Dawn and I spent probably 25 days looking at least briefly, in most cases, the family. Dawn's photos were taken from her kayak from 30 to 50 feet from the edge of the jetty. Her camera was a Canon PowerShot SX70HS and maximum zoom of equivalent 1365 millimeter lens. I took this picture from the island of her, looking at the jetty. It's hard to know how close she is, but she indicated that she was always 30 to 50 feet away. And when she would go out on a kayak, she would retrieve all this floating debris. So that's what you see in her kayak. So July 3rd to 4th in 2024, there was the first brood. It was a failed brood. It was seen on those 2 days. Dawn has good pictures. There was no sign of them on the 5th. And so here we have the parents with one chick. They may have already lost chicks, in fact. This was July 3rd, 2024. On August 21st, 2024, Dawn discovered this family the morning of the 21st. It was a single chick. You can see the chick looks like a much younger bird than the July individual. This is a blown up frame from my video, like others you will see. So this is about the same area as the first brood. They can re-nest, but it's hard. August 22nd. Now this is interesting. Note that this chick is on a rock, multi-submerged during the day. What happens to the area and the chick when the incoming tide hits this area? Since the nest was assumed to be above the mean high tide mark, farther up the jetty, farther up the, toward the top, why did the chick end up this far down the jetty edge? Put themselves in harm's way, potential harm's way. And this chick was very independent. August 23rd. You can see that the chick is exposed. It was, it moved all over the rock. On August 24th, San Bernardino Audubon Society had a pelagic field trip out of Dana Point, and Curtis Morans from the ship got some very good pictures. He had a 600mm lens, no flash, and allowed me to share one of his pictures, the following. Obviously, where I'm taking pictures hundreds of feet away with a camera was not, just basically a documentation situation. So what's the sex of this animal, of the parent? Well, it's a female by the eye criteria. August 30th, 2024. September 3rd, 2024. And on September 3rd, with a nearby western gull, a suspected, perhaps even known predator of young chicks. Looks like they're going to defend a little bit. September 10th. Just to give you an indication of how big the chick is getting. September 14th, the morning of stress. Now, you've already seen the outrigger group go by, and actually the two paddle boarders. Later, the chick ended up in the water on that date. And you can see here the tide was rising. The parents were concerned. The chick was pacing. This is a sequence frame from that snippet, and you'll see the full video in part 2. And eventually, the chick just jumped into the water as the water reached the level of where it was standing, and actually swam around to safety. September 18th. Notice the rock behind the chick. It successfully climbed it. Show you that in a series of pictures. So the camera takes multiple pictures at once. So that's not frames from a video. September 21st. Now, on September 21st, the chick attempted to climb that rock behind this video 1/4 speed. You see there's a blasting hole there. We're going to see another attempt later. Didn't do so well. The dangers of a rock jetty. Actually, I'll show the video of this, and this particular rock that it had a history with in video 2. And on the 21st, this is what the chick, the fledgling, looked like. September 25th. Sure getting big. September 26th. Getting crowded. Pelicans came in, and they were sharing habitat with a lot of brown pelicans. September 27th. Now, this was an interesting day. So on the 27th, the chick and parents were seen on the jetty in the usual area, but 4,890 feet away, another 3 black oystercatchers were recorded by dawn on rocks by the base of the jetty. I showed you that area earlier. We were looking at the eye differences between males and females, adults, including a juvenile. I didn't see it with the 2 adults on September 29th or October 4th. Where did this new one fledge from? Was it a dispersing juvenile from much farther north and not associated with the pair? It would have been detected if it was in the harbor itself. Could have been on the seaside. It could have been the headlands. Could have been from Laguna Beach. It's a real mystery. So we actually had 2 juveniles in 2024. And there it is. That's Dawn's photograph. You can see the bicolored bill. There's no indication of a red ocular ring. September 29th. The fledgling still hasn't been seen flying. The 29th would make it an estimated 41 days old. What the next frame of the 29th video shows is that a food-bearing parent, instead of dropping food near the fledgling, moved so that the chick would have to fly down to the parent for the food. The full video is in video 2. It was really intriguing, and that fledgling did not fly down, even though it was moving back and forth on the rock. October 1st. Dawn had the adult and fledgling early on the very top of the jetty. That was the very first time it was actually up that high, and it might be conducive to learning how to fly up that high. October 3rd. Dana Point still has pea soup fog in the morning. Only a short break from low fog usually happened around noon to 2. This morning before 8 a.m., I did see the family through the fog at the same place as Dawn found them a few days ago. And there they are. Now, if you're a little patient there, and actually have a video in part 2 on this, one parent had flown down to the side of the jetty, and it was clear that the youngster was now chasing the other parent. You can see the youngster is kind of hunched over and was running after the parent. Maybe they were cutting back on food. I have a short, as I say, I have a video of this in video YouTube 2. So October 3rd continuing, after the fog lifted some, I returned to the jetty after 1 p.m. and found the family further to the east. So they had actually moved toward the tower. And there they are in their new position. The chick is actually on the top, October 3rd. And they had moved quite far. You can see that between September 21st and 29th, the family was in the area of the jetty that I show, where the 9 is, right around there. Then they moved to the west, to the right, for a few days, and then a large movement, a calculated 140 plus feet toward the tower. They were on the top of the jetty, so there was not waterborne. I doubt whether the chick walked that way. The oystercatchers were still there on October 4th in the morning, but when I went back that afternoon, they were not to be seen. The area on the 4th was now being taken over by pelicans and cormorants. So here's early in the 4th. You can see the one oystercatcher there, and the whole area was filled with pelicans. I did not see the family on the morning of October 5th, but dawn on the 6th saw them by shark tooth, 220 feet from where they were on the 4th. So now they're making big movements back and forth. So previous to October 3rd in the afternoon, the length of the jetty that the fledgling was found, August 21st to October 3rd, was about 253 feet, short of seeing this bird fly, this fledgling fly. I think it likely, but I could be wrong, given the 140-foot movement along the jetty top in a single morning, that this 46-day fledgling had now achieved flight, and so gets a new title, drum roll, of juvenile, ending basically the material for this study and for this YouTube set. Can the nest success of Dana Point Jetty oystercatchers be increased, given the high density of human activities? Well, I looked at what other areas in prime beloy habitat do, and I found out that they put up signage employed to let people know. But such signage on the Dana Point Jetty might attract more attention to the birds than wanted. Also, signs would have to be seasonally displayed, and nest success here has not been high to begin with. Public education about the situation might be helpful, and maybe other things can be put into effect. So this ended video 1, Travails of a Jetty Black Oystercatcher chick. We went through species status and biology, habitat stresses, and I showed you some examples. Their history in Dana Point and the history of the Breakwater, and then the 2024 brood information using mostly photos. And remember that in video 2, we're going to see those videos of the development of the chick. I was trying to get videos of it stretching its wings and more a look at the home range. So I hope you enjoyed that, and go out and see this family if they're still around at Dana Point. But the next one I will record will be next tomorrow. That'll be video 2, and I will put them both up at the same time. This has been another JDW Talks. I have YouTube talks on genealogy topics, census resources, Ellis Island, immigration and naturalization, and then natural history topics, virtual birding field trips, birding optics, California birds, and miscellaneous things like novelty zithers and biology songs. So thanks for watching. I don't produce that many YouTube videos anymore, but it would be helpful to subscribe if you can to my channel. I have about 800 people who are subscribers. I'd like to see that grow. Bye-bye.